Well, it's been just days since the inauguration of President Emmerson Mnangagwa in Zimbabwe, and it seems the knives are out for members of the opposition. Police there are offering a reward for anyone who can lead them to Promise Mkwananzi, who speaks, of course, for the official opposition, the Citizens Coalition for Change. He has since fled, and he joins us now. Promise, thank you so much for joining us. When did you get news that the police were offering $1,000 reward for anyone who could find you?
Well, as soon as it was released, I got the news. Obviously, we do have sympathizers in the system and everywhere. So the news did get to me about the bounty on my head.
Talk to me about this outstanding arrest warrant, apparently for offences committed during anti-government protests, I understand around 2019. This, of course, predates your time at the CCC. What are you alleged to have done? What did you do?
Well, I did nothing. We did carry out peaceful protests at the time, and were obviously charged with some flimsy charges around, inciting violence and so on and so forth. I went to court. There were 3 cases. I was acquitted on all of the 3 cases. Back then in 2019, there's never been any case against me. It is only curious that it was just after the appointment to be the national spokesperson of the Citizens Coalition for Change by President Nelson Chamisa that these charges were then resurrected.
What do you make of this happening now, post the election?
Well, it's obvious that the regime is trying to silence voices of reason. They're trying to silence me in particular as the spokesperson of the official opposition in Zimbabwe on our principled position that we have taken and that has been backed by SADC and other international observers, that the elections in Zimbabwe did not go according to the laws and the constitution of Zimbabwe. Neither did they satisfy the minimum standards of and principles and guidelines of free and fair elections as encapsulated by SADC.
Are other high-profile members of the CCC being pursued as well?
Yes, nobody is safe as long as you are perceived to be opposition or to be sympathetic to President Nelson Chamisa. My deputy, Gift Siziwa, they're trying to implicate him as well. And many others are in hiding. Some are being sought after by the police, by extrajudicial groups and bodies such as FAS and some ZANU-PF thugs and so on and so forth. But more importantly, I think that the people that bear the most brunt are the low-profile leaders at the locality who are under siege from the regime. We understand that in Sunningdale, the councillor there and his team are being pursued by the police and these extrajudicial groupings. In Gokwe, we have received complaints as far as Gokwe Kabiyun, where our leaders are hiding and the groups are pursuing them. And in many other areas, we've got our local leaders virtually under attack by the regime. And this attack is obviously informed by the fact that there is bitterness and vindictiveness on the part of Mr. Mnangagwa, who is not happy that he was not elected to be president. And not least, I can tell you that even members of ZANU-PF themselves, candidates, parliamentary candidates who had higher votes than Mr. Mnangagwa in his party are also facing a witch hunt to explain why they got more votes than Mr. Mnangagwa. So this is a widespread witch hunt which transcends the CCC, which transcends opposition circles well into ZANU-PF itself.
I know that your party has decided, rather than pursue court action because you think it will be fruitless within Zimbabwe, you have asked for regional leaders to stand up and call for a properly supervised poll, for essentially this election to be held again. How much support is the CCC getting from leaders in the region?
Well, I think we've gotten quite extensive support within the region. And you know that SADC will generally follow quite diplomacy. But generally, as compared to the past, I think that from the outset, the SADC election observer mission here in Zimbabwe was quite forthright. It was very bold, and it broke from the past by pronouncing that these elections had not met the expected standards, and they have not looked back from that day. And it is important to note that this is not just Dr. Mumba who's proclaiming these sentiments. It is a shared sentiment across all the 25 or so observer missions that were observer members that were in the country. And you do see at the inauguration of Mr. Mnangagwa, only 3 out of possible 16 heads of states did attend his inauguration.
Yes, that's
and
right.
There's not been, a normal flow of congratulatory messages from the head of states from across the region and indeed the rest of the world.
I suppose we'll have to see if that translates into actual action. Are you able to tell us roughly where you are? Have you actually left Zimbabwe? And what is your position now within the CCC? Are you able to continue your duties? What happens now?
I'm very able to continue my duties. I have not stopped executing my duties, and I'll continue to execute my duties.
And are you in Zimbabwe still?
Well, that's for me to know and for you to find out.
Okay, now I understand this is a security issue. You don't want to talk about it. I was just wondering if you were still in Zimbabwe. Thank you very much for bringing us the latest. Please keep us up to speed with what happens. Very troubling indeed. Promise, thank you very much. That was Promise Mkwananzi. He speaks for the official opposition, the Citizens Coalition for Change. He says that the charges he's being pursued on, he was acquitted of in 2019. He believes these are trumped-up charges. He has had to flee, doesn't want to obviously tell us exactly where he is, but very troubling indeed. He says that lower-level CCC party members are being victimized in the areas where they live.